Trump v. Musk, the fallout. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Well, it comes as no surprise to learn that the bromance between Trump and Musk has well and truly soured, and it descended into something of a social media brawl. Here we have two very different narcissists who originally came together because there was a degree of cementation as a consequence of mutual benefit. For Donald Trump, he received the residual benefit of money from Elon Musk. He also received the residual benefit by virtue of the fact that Elon Musk owns a substantial social media platform which could be utilized to issue pro-Trump messages. It enabled Trump, therefore, to harness Elon Musk for the purposes of gaining the presidency. Now, he didn't win solely because of Elon Musk, but it was certainly the case that Musk's endorsement of Trump, the provision of funds, and the utilization of his social media platform certainly helped him. You'll recall that Musk made repeated appearances at campaign rallies where he endorsed Trump, and all of that assisted in relation to Trump becoming elected. Therefore, there was a clear advantage to Trump in buddying up, if you will, with Musk. What was Musk getting out of all of this? Well, naturally, it made him kingmaker, which is a form of assertion of control. Like Trump, he was receiving plenty of fuel at these campaign rallies, and therefore being able to get on the platform, because he was invited there by Trump and to Mar-a-Lago, enabled him to bask in all of the fuel that was being provided by grateful Trump supporters. It enabled him to lay his hands on political power because he was appointed as, in effect, a special advisor to the White House, even though he had not been elected himself. Therefore, it was beneficial to him as he didn't have to go through the rigors of election, but still was able to wield power with his appointment to the Department of Government Efficiency. It also put him in a particularly prominent position with regard to the gaining of government contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And therefore, the coming together of these two narcissists, Musk and Trump, was hugely advantageous for both of them. It both enabled them to assert control over the electorate. It allowed them to draw fuel in massive amounts. They both gained residual benefits. Greater prominence for Elon Musk, access to information, access to contracts, money for Donald Trump for his campaign, and a boost in terms of getting him elected. And therefore, it was mutually beneficial for them. They then set to work, and we saw where there were televised broadcasts provided from the Oval Office, where Trump was sat talking and Musk was stood up wearing his baseball cap as the two of them talked about their plans and what they were doing. And initially, all was working well. In effect, Musk was gaining political power, in essence, through Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was maintaining the assertion of control through the utilization of Elon Musk. Of course, those that parried the two individuals would often talk about Musk saying to Trump, "What are you doing in my seat?" because he saw himself as the real power behind the throne and then ultimately ought to be sat in that throne. Even though it was done in humour, it is accurate because in effect what Musk was doing was utilising Trump for his own advantage by harnessing the political power wielded by Trump so that he could assert control in his own right. But it was always going to be the case that these two were going to fall out. The reason being is that Donald Trump as president would ultimately resent the interference that would come from Elon Musk and essentially see him as getting too big for his boots, and Musk would resent Trump because he would see him as intellectually inferior to him and getting in the way of what needed to be done. For instance, they clashed in relation to the cuts that the Department of Government Efficiency had made under Musk, and then the tax savings that Donald Trump wanted to implement as a consequence of his big, beautiful bill. In effect, Musk felt that his work in saving money was being undermined by the tax cuts. And thus this was part of the friction that arose between the two of them. Reuters has reported further on the recent behaviours which provide us with a useful instance of how these two narcissists are interacting with one another now, predictably, as they've fallen out. Donald Trump threatened, use of threat, on Thursday to cut off government contracts to Elon Musk's companies, threat to control, removal of residual benefit, and the world's richest man suggested the US president should be impeached, insult, threat, making a stark end to an unlikely alliance and leaving onlookers wondering what was next. The hostilities between the two former allies intensified when the president criticised, use of criticism, threat to control, Tesla CEO Musk in the Oval Office, and the pair then lobbed verbal barbs at each other on their social media platforms, Trump's Truth Social and Musk's X. This is them trading punches. One states something about the other, which threatens the need for control of the other, who then has to respond. Land a blow, send a blow back. Land a blow, send a blow back. Back and forth they go. The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts, Trump posted. Tesla shares closed down over 14% on Thursday, losing about $150 billion in market value in the largest single-day decline in value in its history. This naturally will have impacted upon Elon Musk's own personal wealth. It won't leave him with his arse hanging out and running to the poorhouse, but the fact that his net worth has been reduced as a consequence of something that Donald Trump has said is not only a reduction in a residual benefit, but it's also a threat to control. Minutes after the closing bell, Musk replied yes to a post on X saying Trump should be impeached, retaliation to nullify threat to control. This is an unthinkable move in Congress, where Trump's Republicans hold majorities in both chambers. The trouble between the two started brewing days ago, when Musk denounced Trump's sweeping tax cut and spending bill. The president initially held his tongue, while Musk campaigned to torpedo the bill, saying it would add too much to the nation's $36.2 trillion debt. Trump broke his silence on Thursday, telling reporters he was very disappointed in Musk. Criticism, threat to control. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore, Trump said. As Trump spoke, Musk responded in real time on X. Accordingly, the criticism of him by President Trump, which of course is picked up and amplified to millions of people by virtue of the fact that he's President of the United States, naturally threatens his need for control. He then responds by stating on X, utilising that platform, his own platform, to nullify the threat to control by stating, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election." Musk spent nearly $300 million backing Trump and other Republicans in last year's election. In another post, Musk asserted that Trump's signature tariffs would push the United States into a recession later this year. Musk, whose space business plays a critical role in the US government space program, said that as a result of Trump's threats, he would begin decommissioning SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. Dragon is the only US spacecraft capable of sending astronauts to the International Space Station. Late on Thursday, Musk backed off the threat. And in a possible détente to come, Musk subsequently wrote, "You're not wrong," in response to billionaire investor Bill Ackman saying Trump and Musk should make peace. Trump and Musk are both political fighters. They have a penchant for using social media to attack their perceived enemies, and many observers had predicted a falling out. It's understandable. They both inherently need control, and being different type of narcissists, ultimately there was going to come a point where the needs of one would impact upon the other, and vice versa. Musk had become one of Trump's most visible advisors as head of the Department of Government Efficiency, which mounted a sweeping and controversial effort to downsize the federal workforce and slash spending. After leaving that role, Musk this week targeted what Trump has named his big beautiful bill, calling it a disgusting abomination, insult, that would deepen the federal deficit. Trump's bill, apparently, to nonpartisan analysts, could add $2.4 trillion to $5 trillion to the nation's $36.2 trillion debt. A prolonged feud between the pair could make it harder for Republicans to keep control of Congress in next year's midterm elections if it leads to a loss of Musk's campaign spending or erodes support for Trump in Silicon Valley, which of course would be a collateral consequence of the falling out between the two of them. Elon really was a significant portion of the ground game this last cycle, said a Republican strategist with ties to Musk and the Trump administration. If he sits out the midterms, that's a problem. Accordingly, they came together because there were mutual benefits for the two of them vis-à-vis their narcissism, and it didn't take too long before the rift occurred, and you now see the interesting playing out of both of them needing to control the other by throwing pelters at one another on social media. We'll see what happens next, whether they continue to fall out or whether there might be reconciliation. Reconciliation is certainly a possibility, and if it does happen, believe me, they will fall out again in the future, thus following once again the rollercoaster pattern that exists when you're involved with a narcissist. Something that is particularly amplified when certain narcissists come together, as they have with Trump and Musk. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.